What if I told you that English was never my favorite subject? Look at the slide. I hate English. Greetings and good day to all of you. I'm Dr. Esther Hooi Chee. I am a lecturer at University TEDxUTAR, Utah. Now, looking at this slide itself, I hate English, but right now I'm an English lecturer at Utah. Surprising, right? Back then, during my schooling days, I was a top scorer for mathematics and sciences subject, especially physics and chemistry, and I scored the lowest in English. Surprising and shocking, right? Then again, how did I fall in love in English? This is where I'm going to share with all of you how I thrive in adversity and how I fall in love in English and how I become an English lecturer. Back then in my schooling days, I was a top performer. I scored really well in my mathematics, additional mathematics, and also mathematics T. But I just basically scored average for my English subjects. Why this happened? This was because I didn't like literature. To be or not to be? To be or not to be? Is it a to be pencil? No, this is a phrase from William Shakespeare, right? And I didn't really understand all these terms. All right, but then what happened was after my schooling days, after getting good results for my SPM and STPM examinations, what happened was, look at my expression. I was denied my first choice. My first choice was education in sciences, but I wasn't able to actually teach sciences, apart from getting good results for my SPM and STPM. So my second choice was actually education in TESOL. So TESOL stands for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. And that was me. And I was telling myself, I hate English. And I had to become an English lecturer after that? Oh my goodness, what am I doing? Just a joke, right? But eventually, on top of that, I was not given any scholarship as well. So I was actually quite disappointed. Yeah, but I told myself this, not to give up. During that period of time when I was not given any scholarship, I was told by others that there was such thing called PTPTN. And that was when I mentioned to myself, why not just apply for this and do well? I heard from others, when I managed to actually graduate as a first-class honors student, my PTPTN loan will be waived and will be converted to scholarship instead. And that was when I struggled and overcome everything to be disciplined, to study hard, to do well, to graduate as a first-class honors candidate. So back then, when I applied for PTPTN, I always spell it as P-I-T-Y, PT, P-I-T-Y, P-T, E-N-D, N, PTPTN. Reason being was because during that time, when I was offered PTPTN, my allowance did not come in on time, and I had to save up everything for the finances throughout my degree days, and that was really hard, right? Eventually, I managed to graduate after my 4 years degree in education in TESOL, and that was when I had to try to find my love in English. Back then, during my schooling days, I could dissect things. I could do experiments. I could go to the lab. I could use all the equipment. But when I was in my degree days, what happened was I couldn't use anything but just to use dictionary and thesaurus. I couldn't even use my calculator, and I felt very awkward. So eventually, during that period of time, for my 4 years, I struggled my way through, and I literally did not understand all these literature terms still. So how did I thrive in adversity? I sought for help from my father, who used to be an English teacher in a secondary school. And he was teaching the same school as I was, and he was an English teacher. Fortunately enough, he was not teaching me. Thank God. But unfortunately, if I did not do well in other subjects, the teachers would tell my father about me, and I would be receiving all the nagging later on. So then, back then, during the time when I asked for my father for help, I had to decipher and interpret all these terms that I would not understand from the Malaysian literature, from the children's literature, and all sorts of literature that I had to learn, and I hated it with my life. I also had to ask for help from my friends who were very good in literature. And eventually, I scored quite well, Not so good, but quite well literally. Then again, how did I fall in love with English? There was an English lecturer who taught me applied linguistics. And applied linguistics. This is where I could use formula in language. And that was when I was exposed to syntax, phonology, phonetics, morphology, and so forth. And I was telling myself, okay, this is the time for me to shine. And I developed an interest in English. I had a very good interest in syntax. And if you don't know what syntax is, it's about sentence structure. And I was very curious on how the sentence structures were formed, created, why the grammatical rules were like that, and so forth. And that was the time for me to shine. Slowly and steadily, I fell in love with English, thanks to the lecturer and thanks to the applied linguistics. So then eventually I made it. All right, and I graduated as a first-class honor student, and my PTPTM loan was waived. That was me and my mother, and you can see we just look alike, and we are just very cute because of that. And my mom bought me a very huge teddy bear to represent me during the convocation day. So moving forward from there, before I embarked myself into masters, I still remember there was a PhD student who eventually tutored me, and this student was in a fellowship scholarship. She saw the interest in me because when she tutored me back then, she saw my eyes were just very shining. You know, when I was very curious, I asked a lot of questions when it comes to syntax. And if you all don't know syntax certain structures, I always term that as Christmas tree. Why? Because, you know, Christmas tree has a lot of branches, and that's where I cannot dissect anything. I could dissect languages, sentences, virtually and visually. And that was when I told myself, wow, this is something that I could apply. So then that PhD student told me to apply for masters. And I told myself, masters? I literally did not like English. I struggled my way to pass my degree, and I had to do research, which I didn't like back then. But eventually, there was this voice inside my head, the inner strength in me, to tell me, why don't I continue? Why don't I do it? Because I do not want to have regrets in life. So this PhD student told me to continue on, and I succumbed to it, and I applied for my master's. And then that was when, okay, next. Sorry, a technical issue. Next. Okay, so I passed my master's viva in 2014. That was the time when I actually came up from the education line to analyze about, you might have guessed, syntax in applied linguistics. And that was when I passed my master's viva in 2014. During that period of time, if you see, I was in tears. And that was the period of time that I was drilled from head to toe, for every single question and for every single word that I wrote for my master's thesis. So this was the last stage before I could graduate. And that was, wow, a struggle back then. When I came out, I thought I failed, but I actually eventually passed. So I was very proud, and I could see that I actually analyzed on certain structures in complaint business letters. So I told myself, I have already done my degree. I've already done my master's. So just one more step further to become an English lecturer. So what happened was, I actually continued on with my PhD, and that was when I passed my PhD viva in 2020. Now, in the period of 2020, everyone was struggling. That included me. Back then, when I was doing my PhD, I had a lot of problems and difficulties. During that period of time, I had a lot of internal struggles. I had a lot of conflicts with my previous supervisor. And I wanted to call it a quit. I wanted to raise the white flag and say, surrender. After 3.5 years, with a lot of problems and challenges, what happened was I changed my supervisor. And I had to actually start all over from scratch for my PhD. And that was why I took a longer time compared to the rest to finish my PhD and eventually pass in 2020. At the period of time when I was doing my PhD, on top of this research, the analysis that I had to go through, I was actually teaching at a university called UOW Malaysia Penang KDU University College. And I was actually lecturing part-time. During that period of time, I was teaching a bunch of Vietnamese students English. And I had a very strong connection with them. However, in 2020, what happened was that a lot of part-time lecturers were not able to continue on, and I was one of them. So at that period of time, I had to do something to support myself financially, right? And that was when I passed my PhD Viva, the next slide itself, that was my PhD convocation, that was in 2022. At that period of time, the convocation was dragged for 2 years due to the fact that I think all of you will have known the cases of COVID-19 increased dramatically and drastically. And that when I thought that I could not even have my PhD convocation. But in that period of time in 2022, finally, I walked on the Hall of Fame for a few seconds with my burger hat and my 3 stripes of graduation robe. And I was telling myself, finally I made it. But at the period of time, after finishing my PhD, on the next slide itself, I was still not proud with myself. Why? When I applied for a lecturing position, back then, I was not able to actually continue my lecturing job at UOW Malaysia KDU Penang University College, right? That's a long name. So I had to apply for something else. So when I applied for 1.5 years, I faced a lot of rejections. When you face rejection for once, what will happen to you? You feel like that's the end of the world, right? Imagine going through the rejection every single time, repeatedly, doing it all over again for 20 single times. Until my 21st time, UTAR finally opened the way for me. And I was really thankful. During that 1.5 years of finding a job and going through 20 times of rejection, I had to finance myself, and that was when I started doing proofreading service. So I also started from scratch with no clients, and I thank God that my friends and my family members promoted me everywhere, and my number of clients escalated locally and also abroad, and I was really thankful. During that period of time as well, I told myself that my brain should not get rusty, even 1.5 years of doing nothing, doing proofreading. I would also want to be a better educator for my students, future students. And that was when I actually joined a lot of webinars online, conferences online, to get more knowledge, to be further equipped, to mold myself as a better individual for the community and for the society. And that was when I also tried to give out free webinars to others, to communicate with others, to know how to relate to others pertaining to my research as well. Now, okay, looking back on all the things that happened to me, I faced a lot of rejection. And when I entered UTAR, I still remember at that period of time, there were a lot of skyrockets, KPIs, key performance indices. We had to go through research. I think all of you who are educators, research, publication, conferences to attend, students to supervise, and so forth. And that was just really stressful. But being me, I was not a quitter. I am a fighter. I fight my way through, from the person who did not like English to the person to like English, from the person who couldn't finish my research to a person to pass my PhD Viva and graduated on the Hall of Fame. And that was when I told myself not to give up, but to continue. And I joined a lot of competitions and conferences. Eventually, I secured quite a lot of awards, thankfully. But that was not the main purpose of joining the conferences and also competitions. The reason is that I wanted to know where my research could help others, to contribute to others, to contribute to the society and also to the community. And that was when I would like to tell all of you, never to give up wherever you go. Because this is where, when I face rejection, when I fall down 9 times, I will stand up the 10th time. If I fall down 99 times, I will stand up the 100th time. Then again, when during this period of time, I faced so many rejections, but just the recent rejection that I faced was about publication. Now, this recent publication was rejected 13 times, 1-3, before it got published at the Scopus High Rank Journal, and I was very grateful after that. Now, reflecting back on all the things that happened to me, I faced so much of rejection. But if, let's say, you face one time of rejection, you feel like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to quit. But I did not quit. So reflecting back the journey that I went through, I realized that we need to be resilient. We have the ambitions and the dreams, and we hope that we are able to inspire others to fulfill all the dreams that we have. And that is where I would like to leave you some points to ponder on. Think about an adversity that you face right now. Hopefully, this adversity that you have right now, you are able to step up from your comfort zone, move forward to solve this adversity, and hopefully, you are able to overcome all this to be at the peak of success. And hopefully, all the sharing that I give right now will be motivational to all of you, and I hope that this will also be a success for you later on. I hope to see all of you at the peak of success. This is my story. I'm Dr. Esther Hooi, and thank you very much.